Responsive web design is an approach to building websites that are optimized for browsers across desktops, tablets, smartphones, and other mobile devices based on a single design. The new responsive web design features in Dreamweaver CC 2015 include visual tooling support for Bootstrap and the ability to add Bootstrap components, a draggable scrubber in Live View, and visual media query breakpoints. Bootstrap is a popular framework because it provides much of the layout and functionality for a website, allowing you to modify it as needed. I can also use the new features to create a responsive website design from scratch. The new document dialog includes options to start a responsive design based on a new or existing Bootstrap style sheet. In this case, I'll click the Bootstrap tab and select to create a new Bootstrap CSS file. Then I'll select the number of columns and sizes for the three layouts. The default settings will work for what I need, so I'll click Create and save my file. From these settings, Dreamweaver creates the CSS, JavaScript, and fonts, and adds the respective Bootstrap files into folders. These files define the grid system that provides the base layout for my site. I'll delete placeholder text and use the scrubber to resize Live View, and click to add additional breakpoints to a new CSS file to keep my base bootstrap.css intact. Then I'll double-click to expand Live View. Bootstrap components are reusable, styled components such as buttons, responsive images, carousels, navbars, and other elements to quickly define layout and styling. Here, I'll add the container component to hold most of my page's content. Now my page is almost complete. I just want to add some gallery images. I'll use the DOM panel to quickly navigate to the column in the Art section where I want to add a row for these images. I'll use the grid row with column Bootstrap component to insert the row with the columns already defined. 3 columns should work, so I'll accept the default and click OK. The heads-up display in Live View in Dreamweaver shows the class selector automatically applied to the row and column divs from the Bootstrap style sheet. I'll set additional predefined selectors from the Bootstrap style sheet to set each column width so they resize correctly when the content wraps for optimal display on layouts such as tablets and smartphones. Then I'll insert the image and nest it into each column. I have 2 more images I want to add to this section. Live View makes it easy to add rows and columns to my grid system. I can click this icon on the last div column in the row to add columns for the last 2 images. Dreamweaver updates the Bootstrap classes in real time, so I can immediately see the effects on my design. Finally, I'll click Visual Media Query Breakpoints to visually test the various layouts. Unlike Creative Suite versions, Dreamweaver CC is a complete, all-in-one tool for building modern, responsive websites. Install the latest update to Dreamweaver and check out the new responsive features.
Validation is one of the simplest ways to check whether a page is built in accordance with web standards and provides one of the most reliable guarantees that future web platforms will handle it as designed. This video shows you how to improve your workflow and validate your website using the results panels and related features. I'll start by switching to the Design workspace. The first thing I'll do in the validation process is to open the Site Reports panel and gather a report about the state of my code. Choose Window, Results, Site Reports. Click on the Play button in the Site Reports panel and select your options for reporting on the page or site and which details to report on. I'll select Current Document, then check all the HTML Reports options and click Run. Notice that the report includes a handful of issues. I'll correct these issues in the following steps. Dreamweaver provides 2 helpful commands that you can use to clean up your HTML code. Let's take a look. Notice the selected code contains both empty div tags and redundant nested font tags. I can clean up this type of issue using the Cleanup HTML command. Choose Commands, Cleanup HTML. The Cleanup HTML dialog box appears, presenting several options. Notice that you can automatically remove empty tags, combine nested font tags, or otherwise improve messy or unreadable HTML code. I'll select the first 2 options and press OK. The command performs its task and ends with a summary pop-up. Next, let's validate that the web font script tag is embedding fonts correctly. If I look at the paragraph style, I can see that the font is set to the Open Sans web font. However, if I look at the web font script tag at the top of the HTML page, you'll notice that it doesn't reference the Open Sans font. I'll fix this issue by running the Cleanup Web Font Script Tag command. Choose Commands, Cleanup Web Font Script Tag, and notice that the script tag updates to the correct state to match the CSS on the page. Next, I'll use the link checker panel to validate the links on the page. The link checker returns a report of broken links, external links, or abandoned links within the site. Choose Window Results Link Checker. I'll set the menu to Broken Links, click the play button, and choose the Check Links in the Current Document option. The link checker displays a broken link. I'll correct the issue, then press Enter to update code view. Also notice that you can check for external links and download reports as needed. I'll complete the process by validating the page using a W3C validation service. Doing so will point out any issues I've missed and will confirm that the page is standards compliant, will be viewable across browsers. Choose File, Validate, Validate Current Document. A pop-up appears stating that Dreamweaver will now send the document to a W3C validation service. Click OK. Notice that the results appear in the validation panel, showing errors and warnings with suggestions for changes. In this case, the primary error is a missing close anchor tag on the email address. I'll fix the issue in code view. From here, I can run the validation service again and address the warnings, or download a report and move on. Also note, I performed the validation against the HTML5 standard, but I can change the doc type by choosing Settings in the validation panel or Edit Preferences W3C Validator. As you can see, using the validation tools in Dreamweaver can help clean up your code, resolve code problems, and confirm that your site is ready for the web. Check out the results panel and see how you can use these validation features to improve your production workflow. Image galleries provide an excellent way to showcase your photos and engage your viewers. The Lightbox jQuery plugin is a free resource that you can use to create image galleries in a snap. This video shows how to make an image grid and use the Lightbox plugin to display a slideshow of images. The structure of the gallery project is simple. Let's take a look in the Files panel. Download and unzip the project files to follow along on your own. I'll start by switching to the Design workspace. The project includes an Images folder with low-res and high-res images, the Lightbox plugin folder, and a gallery HTML and CSS file. I'll work with the HTML and CSS files in split view as I complete the gallery setup. You can see in live view that I've already created an image grid. Rolling over an image displays a caption and toggles full opacity, making the interactivity more engaging as you explore the grid. In code view, you can see that each preview is created with an anchor tag and a div wrapping another div tag and an image tag. The nested div tag contains the caption. I can use live view as an easy way to navigate to CSS. Select the image and then use the up arrow to navigate to the div tag, and then right-click on the selector and choose Go to Code. Here you can see the CSS that creates the rollover effect when you hover over the image, and the styles for each of the elements in the image grid. And now that you know how the image grid is set up, it's easy to activate the Lightbox plugin. Simply link to a few files and set up your anchor tags. Looking at the head tag in the HTML file, you can see that I've already linked to the 3 resources required for Lightbox: jQuery, the Lightbox JavaScript file, and the Lightbox CSS file. Next, I'll complete the setup by adding attributes to the anchor tags. Lightbox uses data attributes to identify which image to load and to assign it a title. I'll select the anchor tag using Live View, then press Ctrl-T or Command-T on my Mac to bring up the Quick Tag Editor in edit mode. To activate Lightbox, I'll add the data Lightbox and data title attributes. And that's it. From here I'll update the remaining anchor tags with the data attributes. Doing so launches the image in Lightbox whenever you click on the preview. So at this point I can check my design to confirm that the Lightbox slideshow is working. I'll turn off selections in Live View for a moment by choosing View, Live View Options, Hide Live View Displays, or Control-Alt-H or Command-Alt-H on my Mac. And in Live View, roll over the previews and click on them to launch Lightbox. And finally, I'll choose File Preview in Browser and take a look at the page. And it's that easy to set up an engaging image gallery. As you can see, setting up an image gallery is easy to do using Dreamweaver and Lightbox. Use Live View to preview and edit your work and quickly navigate code, and use Code View and Quick Tag Editor to dial in your settings. Try creating a project with the same structure and see how you can build a portfolio gallery in just a few steps. Launch Dreamweaver and give it a try.
HTML tables provide a regular structure of rows and columns similar to a spreadsheet. They're intended to be used to display data such as sales figures, weather statistics, or sports results, like the example shown here. For many years, designers hijacked tables for page layout, but doing so causes severe accessibility problems for the blind and people with other disabilities, so you should use tables only for data. So let's see how to insert a table in Dreamweaver. First, I'm going to create a blank new HTML page. So File, New, HTML Layout None. And then I'm going to save that page in the DWCC 2014 exercises site as table_insert.html. There are several ways to insert a table. The first thing you must make sure is that you're in Design View. You can't insert a table in Live View. Well, you can, but it's extremely difficult. Then go to the Insert menu and select Table. There's also a keyboard shortcut, Control-Alt-T on Windows, Command-Option-T on a Mac. You can also use the Insert panel. So if you select the Insert panel, make sure that Common is selected from the menu at the top left of the panel, and then you can insert a table from there. If you click that, it will open the Insert Table dialog box. You set the number of rows and columns. You can change your mind about the number of rows and columns later. Let's just have 6 rows and we'll have 3 columns. Table width. It's a good idea to remove the table width because tables automatically expand to accommodate the contents. Border thickness. In HTML5 you should only ever have 1 pixel as the border thickness. If you want a thicker border on your table, you should do that with CSS. Most tables, though, look better without a border at all, so I'm going to remove that. Cell padding adds horizontal and vertical space inside each table cell. If you use this, it will add the same amount all around. In HTML5, cell padding is now deprecated, so you shouldn't use it. It's better to use CSS. The same goes for cell spacing. It always adds the same amount of space around each cell, and it's far better to do it with CSS. This next section is where you decide where you want to have header cells. You can have no header cells at all. You can have them on the left-hand side, across the top, or both across the top and down the side. I'm going to select both. And then in the accessibility section, you've got the option to add a caption. If you think that you're going to have a caption for your table, it's a good idea to put some placeholder text in here because you can't reopen the table dialog box once you've created the table. So if you want to create a caption, do it here. Otherwise, you'll have to go into the underlying HTML code afterwards to insert the caption manually. So I'm just going to put placeholder caption in there. Summary is no longer used. It's been removed from HTML5. The summary element for a table was never actually displayed in the web page. It was designed entirely for accessibility purposes. And it's now recommended that you should either use a caption or some other way of describing what's in the table. So once you've made your choices, just click OK. And this inserts both the placeholder caption and the table. Now, with nothing in the table, it's obviously very difficult to insert anything inside those cells. So if you mouse over the table and then right-click from the context menu, select Table, and then right down at the bottom, Expanded Tables Mode. And this expands the cells to make it much easier to insert text inside them. This is simply a visual tool within Dreamweaver. It doesn't actually do anything to the table. It doesn't add anything to the underlying HTML, but it makes it easier to click in there so you can start typing. We'll add a heading, then you can press Tab to go into the next cell. Once you've got content in the first row, you can exit Expanded Tables mode by clicking Exit at the top here. Then the table contracts to its normal size. Because I selected headers for both sides, the top row is all in bold. So if I click in this cell here and type a number, that's also in bold and it's centered. This is because it uses a TH element. but in the next one, if I type something, it'll be left aligned and in normal text. That's because it's using a TD, a table data cell. Notice that as I started typing, the table cells automatically expanded to accommodate the content. In Design View, you get these dotted lines to indicate where the table cells are, but if you switch to Live View, they disappear. That shows you what it would look like in a browser. And if you go back to Design View, you can continue adding content to the table. There are several ways to insert a table in Dreamweaver CC. One of them is to go to the Insert panel and select Table. Make sure that Common is selected at the top left of the panel. Alternatively, you can go to the Insert menu and select Table, or use the keyboard shortcut Ctrl-Alt-T on Windows, Command-Option-T on a Mac, and the table will be inserted wherever your insertion point is at the moment in Design View. Inside the Table dialog box, you set the number of rows and columns you initially want. It's also a good idea to remove the width, because tables automatically expand to accommodate the content inserted into them. You should also decide if you want to include table headers in the left column, the top row, both or not at all. You can also add a table caption, which is normally displayed above the table, but which can be moved below using CSS.
This video shows you how CSS Designer works and how easy it is to manage CSS using CSS Designer in Dreamweaver. You'll work with the Cowboy Concept page design to explore the Dreamweaver workspace. The web page design is simple, containing a full-screen background image, a header with branding and navigation, and headline and body text. If I change the width of the live view surface, notice that the design adjusts its layout across screen sizes from small to medium to large. You'll explore how to use media queries to create this effect. So let's dive in. Create a new site and point it to the Style Web Page CSS folder. Open the index.html file and explore the code. The file includes the HTML structure for the page, but it doesn't have any CSS applied yet. You'll use CSS Designer to add styles to the page. By default, CSS Designer appears docked in the panels on the right of the workspace. If you need to, you can open it from the window menu or by resetting the workspace in the top right. I'll drag to dock CSS Designer by itself so it's easier to see and collapse the panels on its right. Also notice that you can drag the panel to change the layout so that you have more room while editing properties. Let's attach the supplied CSS file and take a closer look. Click on the plus button on the Sources area of CSS Designer. There are three ways that you can add CSS to the page. You can create a new CSS file, attach an existing CSS file, or define styles directly on the page. Choose the Attach option and browse for the main.css file in the CSS folder. Then click OK. In Code View, notice that the file is attached to the HTML page in the head tag. In Live View, notice that the page updated with the background image and styled text. Let's explore the CSS that brought the page to life. In CSS Designer, notice that there are two main ways to find and explore code using the All and Current tabs at the top. Select All to show all the styles attached to the HTML page. This provides a great way to get an overview of how the CSS is organized. You can view computed styles by selecting an element and clicking on the Current tab. Computed styles show properties and selectors for the current selection in Dreamweaver, including inherited styles and styles attached directly to the selected element. Switch back to All to show all styles. And notice that the Media section of CSS Designer is used to define media query regions. Media queries enable you to change the design based on certain conditions, such as screen size. You can see here that there are two media queries in the attached CSS. And when you're ready to add styles, that's easy to do. Let's add a class to style the H1 text. Select the H1 tag in Live View, click on the plus button, and add a class named .headline. Press the Enter key, then select the main.css source, and press Enter again to create the class. Right-click on the class in Live View and choose Go to Code to navigate to the CSS in Code View. And you can see that the class appears at the bottom, so I'll drag the class above the media queries to group it with the default code at the top of the page. Next, add properties to format the element. Select the H1 element in Live View and select the headline class in CSS Designer. You'll find it under Global at the bottom of the selectors list. In the Properties area, notice that you can filter properties by category. Click on the Text button to filter to Text Properties. Set the font size to pixels with a value of 64. Set the line height to EM with a value of 0.95. Click on the Layout Properties button and add a margin bottom property set to 10 pixels. And then click on the Show Set option to filter the view to only show the properties you just added. Next, update the class across media queries. Right-click on the headline class and select Duplicate into Media Query. Choose the 768 pixel media query. This step copies the code. Select the 768 pixel media query in the media area, then select the headline selector in the selectors area. And notice that just the set properties have shown because the show set option is still selected. Update the font size property to a value of 90. Update the line height property to a value of 0.85. And update the margin bottom property to 30 pixels. Repeat the process to update the font size in the 1024 pixel media query. Right-click on the headline selector and duplicate it into the 1024 pixel media query. Select the media query in the media area, then select the headline selector. Update the font size to a value of 120 and update the line height to a value of 0.9. Update the margin bottom to 20 pixels. In Code View, you can see that you've updated the class to show larger text when viewed on larger screens, and you can see that we've created copies of the headline class in both of the media queries. CSS Designer's integration with the Dreamweaver workspace makes working with CSS layouts a snap. You can easily create selectors by selecting an element in Live View or the DOM panel. For example, let's try to use the DOM panel to generate a new selector for the paragraph tag. Switch back to source code to view the DOM, and then select the paragraph tag in the DOM panel. Notice that you can browse the entire page's code structure in a very easy way. Collapse the DOM panel and return to CSS Designer. Select main.css in sources, then select Global in Media, then click on the plus button in Selectors. Notice that Dreamweaver generates the selector with two levels of specificity, body and paragraph. At this point, you can use the up and down arrows to change the level of specificity. Rules with more specific selectors have a higher priority in the mix of things. Uncheck Show Set to show all options available for the new selector. Edit the text properties and set the font size to pixels with a value of 15. And set the line height property to EM with a value of 1.75. Duplicate the style into the 768 pixel media query. Select the media query, then select the paragraph selector to view its properties. Update the font size with a value of 18, and update the line height with a value of 1.5. Finish by duplicating the paragraph selector into the 1024 pixel media query. Select the media query and then the selector. Update the font size property to 24 pixels, and then click on the trash can icon to delete the line height property. We'll use the same settings as seen in the 768 pixel media query, so there's no need to duplicate the line height property again. And in Live View, notice that the text styles adjust across screen sizes as I change the size of the Live View surface. You can also use Live View to easily navigate to code attached to elements. For example, select the H1 tag again and right-click on the headline class. Choose Go to Code and notice that you can navigate to the original headline selector or either variation in the media queries. Choose one of the media queries and notice how Code View and CSS Designer update. You can also use Go to Code by right-clicking on the media query in the Visual Media Query bar. For example, right-click on the 768 pixel media query, And notice that line numbers are shown to make it easier to differentiate the media queries and navigate to your code. You can also find styles attached to elements using Inspect Mode. Click on the Inspect Mode button and move the cursor over elements to highlight them and show their code in CSS Designer. Double-click on an element to leave Inspect Mode. So you can see how easy it is to craft your web page design. Navigate your code by viewing all selectors at once, or use context-sensitive editing to adjust styles attached to selected elements. With CSS Designer, managing your code and understanding how it all fits together is easier than ever. So give it a try.
The jQuery UI framework provides a range of widgets such as accordion and tabs that are widely used in the web development world. In an effort of supporting jQuery widgets in Dreamweaver, the Spry widgets are being replaced with these newer jQuery widgets. What we want to do is use a jQuery widget to simplify the user's experience with this form. Before we do that, I just want to quickly come over to widgets.html, which is an empty HTML document. Then I want you to come over to the Insert panel, and under this menu, you can choose jQuery UI, and it will list all the available jQuery UI widgets. If you select something like accordion, the widget will be placed within your document. To modify the contents of that widget, simply select the blue border around the widget, and you'll get all the appropriate options inside the Properties Inspector. You can specify the number of panels, how it animates, and other options, such as icons that will appear within the accordion. As you experiment with these widgets, you'll find that they are very easy to use. But let's come back to that form. If I go ahead and take a look at this page within a web browser, you can see that it's a fairly standard form. There is some formatting applied to it in terms of CSS styling. What I'd like to do, instead of making the end user type in a date, is I'd like to use a jQuery widget that provides them a calendar that they can select a date from. Now, of course, there is a date picker within HTML5, but the jQuery implementation will work across a wide range of browsers and devices. So we're going to opt for the jQuery widget in this situation. So I'll go ahead and close out of the browser, and what I'd like to do is select the text field that's there currently within this form. And once you select that text field, you can delete it, and then you can come over to the Insert panel, and you'll find a date picker. If you go ahead and select that, the date picker will be placed within the form, and you'll notice that you have some basic options within the Properties panel. Now, because I'm going to be delivering most of my content in the United States, the locale will be English. Notice you have all the options to change the month, to change the year. You can have it display inline. You can also set a minimum date. In this case, I'll set it to 1, and a maximum date. We'll have a range of 100 days that the end user could possibly pick from. After doing that, we're going to specify the number of months that we want to display. We only want 1 to display, so we'll leave that default value there. After establishing these settings, you can go ahead and save the document. And now, if we take a look at this within a web browser, you'll notice if we click inside what looks like a text field, a date picker actually shows up. And if you select the date, it'll populate that text field. So that's a much easier way for the end user to enter date information into this form. The jQuery UI widgets are a brand new feature inside of Dreamweaver CC.